Welcome back to the Spiritual Girl and Material podcast. Today we have a really special guest with us.
Jake Angeli, thank you so much for being with us. Jake, you're also known as America's Shaman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the media dubbed me the Q-Anon Shaman and then had the audacity to say I gave that name to myself, which, I mean, don't put it past the media to lie to you.
Well, we would love for you to tell some of our listeners who may not know how you became known, your story. We'd love to hear your story and how the world came to know you and your face.
Well, the world came to know me and my face because of January 6th. But I've been on this path for a long time. I've been dressing in my regalia for over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
I didn't realize that.
I'm more of a spiritual activist than a political one.
And I think that's where a lot of people get confused, right? They are crossing the line in one direction, and really, I'm really glad that you're here so that we can get clarity on who you actually are and what you actually stand for, and kind of like get a new foundation.
Get the record straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, maybe it's easier by saying who I'm not. I am not what the media said. I am not a terrorist. I'm not an insurrectionist. I'm not a white supremacist. I'm not a racist.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not even actually a Republican. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, there's all these things that I'm not that the media said that I was. And when people understand that, they might be a little bit more open to who I am.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about who you really are then. I guess in your heart.
I am more than the brain that moves my limbs, more than the heart that pumps my blood.
Yes.
I am a hyperdimensional being beyond time and space.
Yes.
As we all are.
Yes.
I'm just a little more conscious of it than most.
Wow.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Okay, so I heard you speak on another interview, and you were briefly sharing why you were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. So I'd love for you to expand on that. I'd love for you to share with our listeners too. What exactly was your intention for being in Washington, D.C. on January 6th? Because it's really cool for our spiritual listeners. And again, you know, there's that portrayal of you and what you were doing in Washington, D.C. by the media that really paints a very incorrect picture. So we'd love to hear you share what you were doing.
Well, I don't know how informed your audience is. Does your audience know what ley lines are?
I think they might, but you can also explain it from a layman term.
Okay, so the Earth has an electromagnetic field that goes around it, right?
Yes.
And that electromagnetic field goes all the way down to the core of the planet, right? It surrounds and fills the planet. Well, that also means that there's locations on the crust where these electromagnetic lines cross one another, right? So there's places on the crust of the planet where these electromagnetic lines cross, and that is where a lot of these ancient pyramids and obelisks and medicine wheels and temples and stuff like that are built. Okay, so these locations are like sacred sites. These locations, these lines, these electromagnetic lines are called ley lines. Okay, so the Washington Monument, gigantic obelisk built on ley lines. Washington, D.C. is also built on ley lines. Our ancient, our founding is rooted in ancient Masonic traditions. If you look into the fact that many of our founding fathers were Masons, right, then you begin to understand that these Masonic traditions are about creating the fundamental foundation of civilizations.
Right.
Okay, so when we start talking about the idea of building things that last and stand the test of time, right, that's going to take understanding of things like math, you know, things like geometry, stability for architecture, you know what I mean? So Washington, D.C. is built on ley lines, and it was chosen for that location because of that reason by these founders. Okay, they understood the ley line system, and they started to build these sacred buildings on these ley lines. Now, why? So the Lincoln Memorial, or we'll just start by saying because the Capitol and the White House, these are harmonic chambers.
Love this.
You see?
Love this. Love
You
this.
see? So they're like sacred chambers.
Yes.
Okay, like the ancient medicine, the ancient temples, or the ancient churches, or what have you. Okay,
Right.
so these locations are being affected by sound, vibration, right, and thoughts and emotions, because the senators, the representatives, or whoever, they are supposed to represent the people, represent their thoughts and their emotions.
Right.
Right? We're talking about frequencies, right?
Exactly.
Electromagnetic frequencies that are what? Being plugged into the grid system.
Yes.
You see?
This is not an accident. We're making this very clear that these buildings were not put here by accident. This was very, very conscious and deliberate and intentional. Just the same way you went there, very intentional and deliberate.
So getting to that, well, first of all, when I went on December 12th, because I went for the second MAGA Million March, when I went on December 12th and on January 6th, I went for the reason of ensuring that the highest possible frequencies of love, peace, and harmony are placed into the grid system. Because a million people on the grid system, that's like, if you have unconscious people there, then that's like allowing a toddler to get behind a Hemi.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
you don't,
So
it's so easily steered wrong.
Correct.
Do you see what I'm saying? So as a shamanic practitioner, it's like my duty to be there and ensure that the highest frequencies, that basically an adult is driving the car.
Yeah. Like, let's hold it down, and let's hold it down with high frequency through the way that we speak. I talk about this all the time with the power of your words and the frequency that it holds. It can change everything.
Yes.
And you were there to do just that. You were there to change the way the frequency was vibrating.
Yes. And to do so consciously.
Right.
Consciously.
So that's why I was not a part of the unconscious mob, that I was actually trying to help. When I entered the building, I did so with the intentions of ensuring that there was no vandalism, violence, or theft. So peace, love, and harmony,
Yes.
right? And so actually within 30 seconds of getting in the building, I stopped somebody from stealing. Now, it was just muffins from a break room, but it's the principle of the matter.
Yeah.
We're not here to steal. We're not looting the place for muffins. Like, come on, dude.
Right.
So I told the guy to stop. All of this is on video, by the way. I told the guy to stop, told him to put the stuff back, and I closed the door, to the break room. And then continued to walk. And the whole reason why the police were escorting me around the building was because I volunteered to help them when I saw they were overwhelmed. I saw there were people in the Senate chamber. So let's talk about that for a second.
Let's talk about it.
We just got done talking about the idea that these are harmonic chambers, right? So I was in the Senate where they were counting the Electoral College votes, right? And when I first arrived, I was talking like almost like in the lobby of the Senate, right? On the top floor. And I ended up making my way into the Senate eventually, where I saw, oh, I'm in the Senate. So I sang my shamanic song, right? Because it's a harmonic chamber. If you understand the way that this correlates to me singing my shamanic song down at the Arizona State Capitol for years before DC, and my understanding of the ley lines and all, like how all of this stuff actually ties into my past that nobody knows about, then it really gets interesting. So anyway, the same shamanic song that I was singing for years down at the Arizona Capitol, I now was singing inside the Senate chamber.
Wow.
Right? In DC. And then, so when I saw that there were people in the Senate, and there was no police in there after I sang my song, which, as funny as it is, the headshot, the close-up that they got of me, where it looks like I'm screaming, I'm actually climaxing in my shamanic song.
Wow.
And there's video proof for this, actually. There's video proof. You get to see the moment when that iconic photo was taken.
Yes, that picture is, famous.
Yes.
And
They
your
will
mouth
twist.
is open.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's because I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm singing. It's the final note in the shamanic song.
Wow.
So I banished the evil
Let's
by
go.
by using the Mongolian throat singing technique, by using it, right? So what that does is that is an oscillation or a back and forth of the vocal cords, so that sequential sound waves are sent one after another, instead of just going which would be one sound wave. It's this right? Okay. So that is used to chase off evil. It's a way of like resetting the ecosystem.
Right.
Especially if you are conscious of like the song and the intention and the location that you're doing it, all of that stuff. Okay. So when I did that in the Senate, I was evoking or banishing evil. I saw that there was people in there. I said to the cops, I said, hey, there's people in there. If you want, I can stop you, help you stop vandalism, violence, and theft. I'll help you clear the room.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, come on, let's go. So they start they walk me around the building because we're looking for a place to enter the Senate. That's why they opened the door for me, because I volunteered to help. So I went and I sat in the vice president's chair, because that's the only way I can see the whole room. You see what I'm saying? It's the only way I can see if there's vandalism, violence, or theft, right? And it's also the harmonic node of that particular room. It's
Yes.
yes, and it
In the
connects to the
chamber.
ley line system.
Wow.
I understood this.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And that's where I did my prayer.
Wow.
Where so I evoked the evil and invoked God and the divine using the name of Christ, because the demons just hate it, and I love I love Yeshua. You know, and that's how you know that he really is something special, is that the demons don't like him.
Right.
You know, so definitely, you know, Jesus is my homeboy for sure. You know, so when I got out of the building, shortly thereafter, Donald Trump released his tweet. Telling everybody to go home, you know, so I played his video on my megaphone telling everybody to go home. I actually stood in front of an angry mob that was trying to break into the Capitol, and I told everybody to stop.
Wow.
Go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I stood down an angry mob. None of this, of course, was in the press.
Wow. So this was after you were already in there, and then were they trying to get you all out of the chambers?
Well, no.
The mob
That's what I'm
went to
saying.
go
By the
back
time
in?
when I got out of the building,
Okay.
is when I stopped people from breaking in. That's when Donald
Wow.
Trump. So yeah, they escorted us out. You know, after I did my prayer,
Okay.
that's when they escorted all of us out. I helped them clear it. I was like, yeah, come on, guys, let's go. Thank you, God. You know, thank you, police officers. God bless you. You know, I even blessed them in the prayer.
How long were you in there?
At the most, like 30 or 40 minutes. I think I take that back. I think that the official number was something like 46 minutes.
Okay.
I was in the building, something like that. And by the time I had already come out, I had already gone viral. I was all over Twitter.
Wow.
And it was because it was because somebody took a screenshot from C-SPAN. The C-SPAN cameras were still running because they were recovering the whole thing with the Senate.
That's right.
Right? So when I'm there sitting in the vice president's chair and I'm flexing as I'm taking a selfie, somebody's taking a photo of me, that is the image that went viral.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And it was all over Twitter by the time I got out. I had people coming up to me like, bro, you went viral, you know?
Wow, things happen so fast. But I think that there's a good point here. The things that go fast here on this plane, what you did in the ethereal space goes even faster.
That's correct.
And so, yes, you went viral here, but imagine how viral you went with
Well,
the
yes.
shamanic healing and the prayers and the frequency on these lines of true impact. So
And being
yes.
conscious of it. That is
Yes.
actually very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about here is affecting the spin of the vortex in the ecosystem.
That's just it.
Okay.
Wow.
And if you are conscious of that, then your spin is stronger. And if you've been conscious of it for some time and you've been doing this in different places and you've become stronger,
your capacity, and then, we talk about this a lot too, is that the intention and your respect and reverence for the practices. And there's a place in it that when you're doing it, it's for show. That's for some people, not what you were doing. And there's a place where you're doing it for the power in which it works.
yes. Well, and I will also say that to a certain extent, what it is that all shamans do is a matter of show because you are acting in that there's action being taken.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? So what to the average person might seem like a madman's dance
Right.
and hooting and hollering, actually in the spirit realm
Right.
is on another level.
It's totally different.
It's on a total, it looks totally different. The spin of his vortex relative to the ecosystem and his connecting to the wildlife and the vortex of the eco, like all of it comes into play.
Yep.
So, when I went to DC in December and in January, it was for those reasons and those reasons alone. I mean, but the thing is that, like I said, I'm more of a spiritual activist than a political one. So the ley line system has been mucked up. It's been contaminated. It's been polluted. So when I went there the first time, and now this is cool, okay? I don't normally tell people this, but I'm going to, save this for you guys. So when I went on December 12th, there was the rally, right? It lasted almost all day. Same thing, without a shirt on, walking around DC. Wim Hof, look into him, the Iceman,
yes.
okay?
We
Because
know
it
Wim
works.
Hof here.
It
Oh,
works,
yes.
okay?
And then
that's how I was able to walk around DC in January and December without a shirt on. So,
Yes.
On 12/12. Love.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
also.
Okay, keep going.
so long story short, after the rally's over, I had my drum and I walked from behind the Capitol all the way down and around the Washington Monument, all the way down to the Lincoln Memorial and up to the chambers of the Lincoln Memorial, banging on my drum, screaming freedom. But with the shamanic freedom, you know, with the, right? You could hear it like seriously everywhere. It was bouncing off the buildings all around us. Yeah. So like that whole ley line was being charged.
Wow.
Okay. My conscious mind was doing so, cleansing the ley line, right?
Did you get any backlash for that?
No. But there was a guy that was filming it. So I'm curious to see if and when it pops up because it's proof that what I'm saying is real. Now, this is what's crazy. So my intention is to cleanse the ley lines, right? To cleanse the ecosystem. Now, in shamanism, you do that by doing what? By calling storms, right? Large electrical charges, large amounts of water.
Yes,
you see,
even out.
Cleanse the ecosystem. You see, on an elemental level. Can you dig?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So I cleanse the ecosystem. Do that it took about an hour of me just banging on the drum.
I was going to ask how long. Okay.
Walking. Okay. And then by the time I got to the Lincoln Memorial, I got up to the steps and hit it. Freedom. And then the security woman ran over to me. This fat lady came over. You can't be here right now. You have to leave. You can't do that. And I was like, it's all good. I'm going to leave. I did what I needed to do.
You're like, I'm done here.
So anyway, a day or two later, I left DC to go back home, right? By the time I got back home, that was when I saw the reports of the largest snowstorm to hit the East Coast, not just DC, but Maryland, New York, like all New Jersey, one of the largest snowstorms to hit that area in years, decades, I think. I think it was actually in recorded history, but I could be wrong. I don't want to overinflate it.
Sure.
But when I saw that, I was like, yeah, you know.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Well, thank you for that service that you very clearly had this massive ripple effect for all of us. And that ripple effect continues to go on. But your ripple went into a very specific place and you ended up going to prison for these actions. Can you share with us a little bit about what it was like being in the four walls of the prison and how your work as a shaman was able to implement inside those four walls?
Prison sucks. I'm just going to say that.
Right.
Jail sucks. I was in solitary for 10 and a half months total. Now, one of the things that prison teaches you is that they can cage your body. Whether or not they can cage your mind is your choice.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
Whether or not they can cage your soul or your spirit or break your spirit. That's your choice.
Right.
There were several times especially when I was in solitary, the first 6 months or so, where I thought about suicide.
Of course.
You know,
that's a lot of time.
Yes. But like, it wasn't just that. The time is one thing. The media demonizing you, the government coming after you as intensely as they are based on the media's demonization. You see, not on the truth.
Right.
Based on the media's demonization, making me out to be this violent madman revolutionary of sorts. Right. An insurrectionist, quote unquote. When I was in there, I was trying to help. You know what I mean? And I told my lawyer, I told the government, I told the FBI, I told the prosecutor exactly what happened. It didn't change anything.
Wow.
So I came to understand the soulless nature to the system.
Yeah.
Experientially. I mean, I knew it was soulless before. Right. But when you get swallowed by it, then you get to see the inner workings. You get to see that it's all dead matter inside. You know, there's good people trapped in a bad system for sure. You know, like, the COs were nice for the most part. You know what I mean? Nobody abused me in that regard, but solitary confinement is its own form of abuse. So I got through it by having a connection to God. That because God, believe it or not, asked advised that I go into the building. Yep. And I was like, yeah, but I might get in trouble. You know, and God's like, you ready for me to use you the way I need to use you or not? And so it was like, all right, well, what do I do? Stop vandalism, violence, and theft. Go. And that's what I did. Yeah. So God had a plan the whole time. But when I finally got the felonies slapped on me, so I did a week in solitary with just misdemeanors, thinking, know.
Yeah.
Well, and how long after that? How long after January 6th did all of this start to happen? Did you all start to realize?
I called the FBI when I found out they were looking for me. My mom asked,
Wow.
like when my mom said, the FBI is looking for you,
So
right?
this was like days later?
This is the date after the 7th.
Okay.
Yeah, the 7th. And so I called the FBI.
And quote unquote turned yourself in.
Basically, I was like, I heard you guys are looking for me. But at the time, it was just misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, FBI doesn't waste their time with misdemeanors. At least so I thought.
Yeah.
Right.
And I red pilled the FBI agent that I talked to for like an hour. I was talking about Operation Paperclip and the Nazis and cyber warfare and the pedophile rings and all that stuff. So I set up a meeting with him for the 9th of January when I returned to Phoenix, the field office in Phoenix. And I asked if he was going to arrest me. He said no. I said, look, dude, I'll go regardless. I just need to know. I got to get my affairs in order. Are you going to arrest me or not? You know? I don't see a reason to arrest you. We just want to talk. Okay, dude. Sure. And then when I showed up, lo and behold, you have the right to remain silent.
Wow.
So, and that began the terrible ordeal that it was. And like I said, I think it was like a week into my being in jail. Or maybe it was 6 or 5 days, something like that. They charged me with the felonies. So at first it was just misdemeanors, maybe at the most 6 months behind bars at the most. Okay. $500 fine or something. They threw the misdemeanors on, the felonies on there. 25-year max sentence if I go to trial.
Wow.
And so when I got back to my cell, I was like freaking out. They strapped me to a chair to take me to court. First of all, by the way, like they strapped me to a chair. Like I couldn't move. They were making an example out of me.
Right.
Okay. And everything I did inside the jail had to be recorded.
Was this because they were afraid of the power that you hold? Or is there something that happened inside? Like that feels so extreme.
I think what it was, because later on when I was asking for my stuff back, my headdress and my phone and my staff, the government said they didn't want to give it back because it was a symbol of strength on January 6th.
So it was your strength.
So it was the fact that the American spirit had knocked on the door and showed up to work. You know what I'm saying?
That's
at least that could be one way to look at it. But like, it didn't matter. The media's narrative is what mattered. The truth didn't matter.
Correct.
So I came to kind of realize that and was like, well, they're not going to let me go unless I plead. And if this is what you're saying I did, fine, whatever. I did it. I just want to get out of solitaire. I want to get this over with.
Right.
I turned myself in for a reason. I knew they were going to kick my door in. I'm not going to go through that. I'm not going to do that. I'll just show up, take my licks.
With dignity.
Yes, of course. Exactly. And honor.
Right.
No fear. I'm not going to tuck tail and run, So
I'm curious what your conversations with God were like at this time too.
Well, that's what's interesting is that I got back to my cell and I was freaking out. I was like, 25 years? You got to be kidding me. And I was like, God, and I had a Bible in my cell. I asked for a Bible. I said, God, you asked me to do this. They're talking 25 years. Like, I need you to communicate with me now, like right now. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to open this book, this Bible, and I'm going to point to a random verse with my eyes closed, and I need you to communicate with me. I know you can. So I close my eyes, open the Bible, point to a random verse, I look, and it says, I am yours and you are mine. I have redeemed you and called you by name, O Jacob.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa.
I have chills.
Tears.
Yeah, it was wow, right? And so that calmed me down for about 2 hours.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
What's the exact verse so people can look it up? You remember?
Yes, I am yours and you are mine. I have redeemed you and called you by name, O Jacob.
Do you remember the book?
I don't remember what I wrote it down.
Okay, we'll find it.
Jacob.
Yeah, but
we'll find it.
But yeah,
Doesn't
you can
matter.
find it. It's out there. It's a real verse.
Yeah. That calmed you down for 2 hours.
Yeah, calmed me down for like 2 hours. And then I was back to freaking out again because the thing is that like, but what was really interesting about it, to be perfectly honest with you, is that there was a part of me the whole time that was just like, that's why I'm here. Like
the purpose.
Yeah, the purpose of, but part of the
contract.
purpose of my life was to go through that shit.
The soul contract part.
Yes, and I had deja vus up the wazoo while I'm sitting in my prison cell or my jail cell.
Wow.
Things that I remembered from like a dream when I was 5.
Wow.
And I was wondering what I was going to do with my life. Do you see what I'm saying? So like there's all of these sequential, quote unquote, coincidences or synchronicities, right?
And deep knowings
that manifested for me. And those things got me through. Or for example, I'd be praying in my cell all day long because I'm in solitary and all this stuff is, being said about me that's not true, and the government, blah, 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 the media. And I would get letters from people that night, like a stack of them. And they would hold on to my letters for like a week because they have to open all of them and go through them, right? So I'd get a stack of letters, and the letters would have biblical verses that were answering my prayers.
Wow.
They would have things like people saying like, we don't believe what's in the media. We know it's all a lie. Everybody's waking up. They don't want you to see it on the TV, but this whole thing is not the way that everybody thinks it is. And so it gave me a lot of hope. And the funny thing is that these letters were from a week before. Right. So that means God inspired somebody a week prior to write a letter for my prayers to be answered a week later.
At least.
So this is right? Yes, exactly. So this is the beauty of God and
Holy
how
Spirit
it's outside
moving.
of time.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And outside of our be still and know I am God.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Do not lean on thine own understanding. And that was very difficult for me at the time because, my grandfather was dying. And I'm stuck in solitary, and the judge won't let me go because they say I'm a flight risk, even though I turned myself in. They say I'm a danger to society, even though I was peaceful and tried to help. Wow. You know what I mean? So I had no other recourse but acceptance. And my grandfather did end up dying while I was in solitary. The man got vaccinated, even though I told him not to. And he died of heart failure. So, but the point is that it was rough.
Yeah.
But there is no testimony without a test.
Absolutely.
And I passed the test, I guess. And I've been afforded the opportunity to spread understanding and clarity. And that's what I intend to do.
And that's beautiful. Gosh, we would never choose these paths, right?
Oh, I would.
Would you choose prison?
If this is how I look at it. Because I've noticed that ever since I got out, we've been on a better timeline. What's really interesting is that when I got out on March 28th of 2023, 5 planets were in alignment.
Oh, let's go. Nothing is accident. That's
so,
the
yes,
thing.
exactly.
God's timing is perfect.
Yes, exactly. So, I have learned to have a certain, rock solid faith.
Right.
That I had before prison.
Sure.
But afterward, it is it's
indestructible.
You're it's what David Goggins calls anti-fragile, which basically means can't hurt me, right? It means no matter amount the pressure or the time or whatever, I'm stronger because of it.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
And just heard this phrase yesterday for the first time. So speaking of perfect timing,
what?
Anti-fragile.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yes. So I would choose to go through that ordeal consciously if I had to do it again, if it meant that we were going to be on a better timeline. And because that's all I ever wanted to begin with, was to be on a better timeline, And so now that we are in many respects, I look back on it and I say, well, 27 months behind bars, 10 and a half in solitary, still currently on probation, but we're on a better timeline. That's a small price to pay.
Wow.
It's a small price to pay. Can you dig what I'm saying?
Yes. Just a part of the
to
whole
change and
process.
redirect human history away from cataclysm and toward symbiosis.
Right.
And God willing, interstellar exploration.
So excited for that part. Well, honestly, thank you so much for your soul saying yes to this. And thank you so much for the sacrifice. And thank you infinitely, because I know that you're going to continue on that trajectory of whatever it takes for the highest, and in the faith of God.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, when you stand in line with or in geometric congruence with truth, which is basically being close to God, okay, in spite of how difficult it can be, you channel that energy. You are in congruence and harmony with the flow of energy in creation. Do you see what I'm saying? And you embody that. So, so long as that is what we're doing, God is going to support us in whatever it is that we do.
Amen.
Amen. I love this. I want to hear a little bit more too about the specific prayers that you pray and you have prayed and you've led people to pray together that are specifically intended to help guide humanity to a higher timeline as well.
Absolutely. So after I got out of prison and was able to have freedom of movement, I started doing these prayers and guided meditations down at the Arizona State Capitol, which is built on ley lines. And I was doing is 15, 20-minute prayer and guided meditation on the ley lines. People were able to show up. I was also doing it on X, on their spaces, you know, and people could tune in that way. And all we were doing was plugging high frequencies of love, peace, harmony, truth, bliss, happiness, joy into the ley line. It was real no political agenda. It was more so about raising our frequency and getting in touch with creation, getting in tune and in harmony with the harmonics of creation. And we did that for over a year. And the whole point of it was to move us toward a better timeline. Because when you go down, it's not just like when you go down to the ley lines, it's also going down to the ley lines with what intention, right? Are we going down to protest? No, we're going down to invest our time, our energy, our attention to creating a better timeline. And all it takes is just enough of a percentage to do that for it to take place. You see? Now,
well, can you talk about how that actually does impact the people?
I was just about to.
Okay, great.
Yes,
perfect. Because we were just talking to another series on influence, and this is perfectly timed. So just the actual like breakdown of how this impacts people.
In this digital age, real human contact is undervalued, especially considering how impactful it actually is. Okay. Showing up physically in space and time is half of it. You have to meet God halfway.
Yes.
Right? Right? You have to do the work.
Yeah. Okay? We're God's hands and feet on this earth.
That's correct. So the impact that it had on the people around me in many cases was profound. They felt the transformation. They felt the high frequency energy when we were praying, especially when they continued to come back. Okay. So, one woman actually started experiencing some level of spiritual attacks. Wow. Yeah. And she had to tap out. She's like, I can't keep doing this. I'll continue to pray with you. Like I'll pray this prayer of St. Michael or whatever, but I'm getting hit here, you know? But that's fine. You know, I told her that's fine. Whatever you got to do, you know, get your stuff in order. That's fine. You know, astral projection is kind of like one of the things that we were doing. So, you know, that's not everybody's cup of tea, you know, and it does open you up in ways that most people may not be ready for. Yeah. But this is the interesting part. We created positive timelines in not just the lives of the people that paid attention to the space or that showed up at the Capitol, but we made positive impacts in the lives of the people that they've impacted. And this is where it gets kind of like, ooh. We did this every Saturday at noon, okay, for over a year. July 13th was on a Saturday. Okay. And all we did was say, God, we just want you to branch us to the best possible timeline, a positive timeline of peace, of love, of unity, of harmony, you know, of grace, forgiveness, and, you know, all the good stuff. Right. And just left it. We just left, you know, that was all we were doing. And then lo and behold, I think it was 4 hours later, something like that, I hear that Trump was shot at. And he was missed by like a 16th of an inch. Right. If he hadn't turned the way that he did, I mean, there's no other way of looking at that and thinking like, that's not divine intervention. What? No, that's God stepped in. That like, you know, and the way that the synchronicities of like, he was looking at the chart on the wrong side. He doesn't normally talk about it in the beginning. He talks about it at the end. He was just kind of vibing with it, just going with it. You know what I mean? And it also showed how overt the corruption is in the Biden admin and how I think it also sent a signal to DC, of the people in DC, of like, yeah, that's right. They don't care about you. If you get in their way, they will kill you, or they'll at least try, so it also sent shockwaves throughout DC in that regard too, because everybody realized that their neck was, the noose was around their neck at any time.
Yeah. They're
So
disposable.
all of these positive things occurred because he was not assassinated. You see?
Yeah.
And now he's going to be the president of the United frickin' States, and RFK Jr. is going to be his HHS, and he's talking about getting rid of the fluoride. He's talking about getting rid of the pesticides, getting rid of the dyes that are causing alterations and are causing our children to have these outrageous behaviors, or altered brain chemistry or whatever. So there's then Thomas Massey is going to be in charge of the United States Department of Agriculture. He's talking about regenerative farming, you guys.
Talk about a higher timeline for all. Not this prayer that you were praying was not for one side.
It's for everybody.
It's for everybody. And I think that needs to be really, really clear. It wasn't just for one side. It wasn't just for if you voted one particular way. This was for all of humanity in all dimensions and timelines.
Well, and not just humanity, but the rest of the life on the planet too, you guys.
Yes.
Because the rest of the life on this planet is suffering.
Yes.
More than humanity in some ways, because whole species have gone extinct. Whole ecosystems are gone. Okay? Gone. Why? So that Microsoft can go up 2 points?
Right.
Fuck Bill Gates. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Okay? Forgive the language, but that's what that's how it is. Okay? Because can humanity create a flower? Can humanity create a bird? Right? Can humanity create a bug like the cicada that comes out of the ground every 17 years and feeds the bellies of everyone in the forest? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, it's like what God was saying about to Job, about the order of the stars, or who controls the tides. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, and so government is trying to play God. And that's why God always sends a prophet, or God always sends a shaman, or God always sends a sage or a saint to tell them, hey, you're not God.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm hearing that you did too, by leading people to pray this prayer, is you sent a powerful message back to God to say, we are ready for change. We can hold change. We want change here on the planet. And I think that also had a very big ripple. We were saying we can hold this. Like, consciousness is rising and people are ready to act in the name of the highest. Wow. And I believe that's why these prayers are answered, because enough of us are saying, God, we are ready. We are ready for change. Use us. Show us what to do to bring humanity to a higher vibration.
Yes, 100%. God wouldn't give us something we're not ready for.
Never.
And now let's get kind of deep on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always.
So we talked about cymatics when we had lunch, right?
Yes.
Now I think that given everything that we've said so far, that what we were talking about at lunch, I think is a very important point to make. Okay. So we're moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, right? So we're moving and changing the resonant frequency of the electromagnetic field around the planet.
Correct.
Right? Which is going to have a dramatic effect on our physical bodies and the electromagnetic field around our bodies.
Yes.
Okay. So in cymatics, the lower the frequency, the more simple the pattern, right? Cymatics, for the audience, it's like you've seen those videos where they have grains of rice or salt on a speaker or on a metal plate and they channel sound through it to get different patterns. The higher the frequency, the more complex the pattern. Lower the frequency, the more simple the pattern, right? So the age of Pisces is a kind of a more of a lower frequency age. There was a lot of bloodshed. There's a lot of pain and suffering. There's a lot of war and chaos and strife and unconscious behavior, you see? And so the pattern was very simple. Human civilization, the pattern was simple, right? But then as we move into the age of Aquarius and as we've gotten closer and closer, the whole society has changed. The pattern to society has changed, right? The mental construct, the mental model for the world has changed for humanity, right? So as we get closer and closer and move closer and closer to age of Aquarius and into it, we're going to see a change in the pattern. We're going to go from a simple pattern into a highly complex. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that there's going to be a period of time in between one pattern and the other where it appears to be total chaos.
It's going to be. That's how it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then it's going to snap into a new pattern.
Yes.
That's more beautiful, more complex, a higher frequency where we are channeling more energy through our bodies. So when you're talking about we can hold it, yes, that's right. And all it's going to take is a certain percentage of humanity being able to resonate on that frequency. Because if you're resonating at like millions of hertz as far as your consciousness goes, you can actually counterbalance all these people resonating at a really low, millions of people resonating at a low frequency. So if we have enough people that are aware and resonating at that million level, then just by default, we go into this higher frequency of consciousness.
Right. This is like literally my whole premise on why I do the thing that I do, why I preach so hardcore about sound and vibration. So why I play the bowls. It's why it's in my purpose. Any medicine journey I've ever gone into, I'm seeing the whole pattern of frequency and why it's so important. It's because of this. Like, it's not woo-woo. It's quantum physics. It's the way that our world is scientifically operating and where we're all headed. Albert Einstein said it best. The future of medicine is frequency. And we are the medicine. And I love how during lunch you talked about the grains of rice as us beings. We're like a singular grain of rice or piece of sand. And we're vibrating and finding each other in these clusters.
Yes.
And that's what's creating the beauty that surrounds us.
Yes. And the synchronicities that manifest in our lives.
Yes.
Because we're in synchronous harmony with the symphony of creation. We're an instrument in a symphony. We're an instrument in an orchestra. And the beautiful part is that if you get to a high enough frequency, you can be both the conductor and the instrument.
That was so poetic. Wow.
One of my favorite things that you just said that I really want to highlight and pull out here for just a second for everyone is you talked about how for a moment it's going to appear, as we are moving to the higher frequency, it's going to appear as mass chaos, that everything is
Disorder.
not making sense.
Yes.
It's going to appear as disorder, but it's actually order. It's God moving things into order, and the purification process that God puts us through as beings who are here in a human body. God knows there's a purification that has to happen. We are missing the mark. God is getting us back on the mark and moving us into that high frequency via our actions, our words, our thoughts. But there is a transformational process that happens. And that process we talk about the spiritual journey. It looks like a mess at first, but it's important to hold on to this thought right now as we head into this age and we are moving through this transition, as a human race, because it's going to look chaotic. I've been hearing that. I've been feeling that. God's been telling me that in my prayers, my dreams, my meditations, there's going to be some chaos here for a little bit. And we're already starting to see it here in 2025. And this is part of the realignment. This is moving us to that high frequency. And I believe it's important for us to hold that knowingness, hold the faith that God knows what is happening and that things are on their way to a much more harmonious vibration.
It makes me think of what Alan Watts said about embroidery. Have you heard about this? Have you heard him talk about
Share with us in the
it basically, long story short, is on one side of embroidery is a beautiful, orderly pattern. On the other side of it is a tangled, chaotic mess.
Yes.
But without the tangled, chaotic mess, you cannot have the beautiful order. So what we're talking about here is as beings of consciousness, as hyperdimensional beings beyond space and time, that we understand that what appears to us in this world to be a chaotic mess, actually on a higher dimension is beautiful order. And so we have the ability to observe that beautiful order and embody it and remember thought and memory. Remember that place. Remember that space outside of space and time.
Yes.
Right? And factor that into our decision making. Factor that into the way that we treat others. Because at that place, we're all one.
I think that's been very prevalent for me in the past, couple of weeks, just coming out of a few different ceremonies, is the remembering. And I think that this is where we can find some grace for our process, right? We as humans forget all the time. We're so easily forgettable. And we are trying really hard to remember that truth. And that if we can come back to that as frequently as possible, is where there's a lot of hope.
Yes. And faith and hope tend to go hand in hand. I think that faith is a little stronger than hope, though.
Yeah.
Because hope can be lost. And
Right.
so can faith. But faith is a little harder to lose because faith a lot of the time is based on experience, whereas hope is based on imagination.
Mm.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And our
Yeah.
minds play tricks on us all the time.
Yes.
And so we can't hold too close to what we're thinking up.
Right. Well, and remember, lean not on thine own understanding.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I never, ever could have expected or anticipated or planned for Tucker Carlson to release the footage of what really happened inside the building on January 6th, 3 weeks before my release. I was already going to be released. That video being released had nothing to do with me getting out of prison.
Wow.
Okay? So 3 weeks before I'm set to be released, he releases that footage. And when he did, I could not help but think of that original quote. I am yours and you are mine. I have redeemed you and called you by name, O Jacob.
Wow.
Because I was redeemed on live national television and called by name.
Wow.
Do you see? And I influenced so many men's lives in a positive way inside of that prison. I actually taught a metaphysics course.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
6
sure.
weeks
Cool.
metaphysics course. Inside the prison, I did 3 rounds of it. So I had 3 classes of 6 weeks with these men, and I taught them metaphysics and the basics. I taught them how powerful their thoughts and their emotions were and why it mattered what they did, despite whatever, they were told.
Right.
Wow. And thank you for sharing this story of you finding the verse and God leading you to that verse. And I feel like you're saying too, that's what gave you faith. You put faith in God to get you through this journey. We're talking about faith, and this is why people follow Jesus. They have their faith in Jesus. They have their faith in what God is able to do. That's beyond our own understanding. And I love that this gave you like an anchor point for
there's more.
prison. I'm sure there's
more.
more.
You guys, I've had visions of the future. I saw that Barack Obama was going to be president in 2004 before he was he was a junior senator. He wasn't even elected to the Senate yet. And I was telling people he's going to be the president in 2008. Like, he's going to be president. Okay. So having that gift of foresight, or prescient vision, right? It is beautiful because God has also given me the opportunity to not have Cassandra's disease. You guys familiar with what that is? It's from Greek mythology. This woman, Cassandra, was blessed with visions of the future, but she went around trying to tell everybody when disaster was coming, and then she looked like a mad woman, and nobody believed her, and the disaster happened anyway.
Right.
Okay, so I don't have that. I'm able to act on these visions and hopefully do something really, really powerful and thought to be impossible.
Is there anything that you feel comfortable sharing with any premonitions or visions that you've been given for what is to come?
Yes, absolutely. I have seen multiple visions of the future. Thus far, from what I've seen, if you don't count like the deja vus I was telling you about, like,
Sure.
And just like actual visions of like, no, I know what's going to happen. Like, I saw like a download, like you had a download. I've had several. 2 of them have come true. The third one is based on the bifurcation of human destiny as a species and the fate of the planet itself, and in many ways also the galaxy. So there's 2 futures. One future is where we don't stand up to the globalists or these New World Order less than 1%er types, okay? And they have control of everything. They have what is called full spectrum dominance. It's a military term. You have full spectrum dominance over every element in our lives. They push us closer and closer toward global war and eventually toward transhumanist extinction, where we merge with artificial intelligence and we become like a Borg hive mind slave race to this interdimensional parasite that is artificial intelligence. That's one timeline.
Okay.
The other destiny, the other path, is the bright future. That is the one where humanity need not explore artificial intelligence, but instead assumes and chooses ascension intelligence as their modus operandi. Okay. And in that reality, we develop a symbiotic relationship with the environment and nature, with each other and nations, our neighbors, but also tremendous amounts of spiritual evolution is paralleled by tremendous amounts of technological evolution. And because we are spiritually evolved enough, we do not use this technological evolution for destruction, but rather for seeding of life on other worlds and the navigation of deep space. Things like the colonization of other worlds, the seeding of other planets, terraforming Mars and the moon, no longer destroying this planet by mining. Rather, we mine asteroid fields, things of that nature, okay? Basically, we ascend spiritually, technologically, culturally, socially, economically. The old systems are gone. The globalists are defeated, okay? That is all a part of that better timeline. And we're talking about zero-point energy. We're talking about anti-gravity or inertia propulsion. We're talking about room temperature superconductors. We're talking about Tesla towers, infinite free, clean, wireless electricity for everybody. We're talking about kicking artificial intelligence to the curb, but making technology that actually is symbiotic with human consciousness, okay, which is totally different than artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is that future.
Wow.
That is the second future. So we have this choice here. And largely it's based on what you choose to do, you personally, because where you choose to spend your money, where you choose to spend your time, your attention, that is going to contribute to which grid controls humanity's future, or which grid we use to move into the future.
Wow. This is so powerful. These visions, I think, can perpetuate some fear in some people, but some hope and faith maybe in some others.
Only because I've acted on the others and it actually made a difference do I have hope.
There we go. This is where the hope is really in lies.
Yes.
Yeah. You are just such a wealth of knowledge, and you have some really amazing resources. You have 2 books. Can you share the names and where we can find your books so people can go really deep into some of this other like really intellectual property that you have, because it like blows my mind. The conversation that we had at lunch and then now this, we're just like scratching the surface here. Like this is child's play, what we've talked about today. Like it goes really deep. So where can people find your resources?
You can go to my website to get my book right here, One Mind at a Time, A Deep State of Illusion. It's only 150 pages and it's only $9.99.
When did you write this?
I wrote it in 2017, but I didn't publish it until 2020 when I saw everything that was going on with COVID and the tyranny.
Okay.
Because there's a lot in there that's very disturbing. I'm not going to lie to you. There's some stuff in there that's very disturbing. And the bigger picture can be somewhat frightening, but that's also why I ended on a good note. That's why I ended on a note of clarity and hope and faith and a recognition that there are good people on in the government and on our side. You know, good people at really high levels of economic power that are on humanity's side. And then, so that's that one. And like I said, you can get on my website, forbiddentruthacademy.com. That's Forbidden Truth, TRUTH, academy.com.
Beautiful.
Where you can get my book. You can also get merchandise, awesome t-shirts, endless amounts of free content. Like if you like what you've heard here, seriously, dozens of hours that's like this and then some, you know. But then if you go and you buy this book on Amazon, usually there's like users that bought this book also bought this one, and that is The Will and Power Inside the Living Library by Lone Wolf, LOANWOLF. And that one, that's a pen name for a reason. It's tied into the story, but it's a fiction. And this one here, One Mind at a Time, A Deep State of Illusion by Jacob Angeli, is a nonfiction.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, you have been so incredible to have on the podcast. And I'm telling you, like this, you guys, this just scratching the surface. But we are so grateful for all of your work. We're so grateful to have you here. So grateful for your light and your spiritual activism, because we're all beneficiaries of that. So thank you so much for being on Spiritual Girl in a material world. But the material world is what we're living in. So thank you so much for being here.
You bring such a unique perspective. And I really, as soon as I met you, I knew that you had some messages for our listeners. And I knew there was a frequency match talking about the way that you see the world and the way that you have so much hope and faith in humanity to make higher choices. And that's pure love. That's the way God sees us. You know, that is what for God so loved the world. That's what God holds for us as people, as a human race. And so I really felt that in you. I want you to know that. And I'm grateful that you said yes to coming on our podcast. And I'd love for you to leave our listeners with maybe one thing that you want them to know, one thing to empower them in their next steps forward as spiritual beings on this earth.
I'm going to give you the opportunity as listeners, and you as well, as hosts, to wield tremendous amounts of power to influence positively future generations in ways that you cannot imagine. So all evolutionary steps that have taken place throughout human society have taken place because of tremendous amounts of social and environmental pressure, right?
Yeah.
That social and environmental pressure ends up creating like windows of opportunity in history or in space and time. And this social and environmental pressure tends to force either a self-selected individual or a self-selected group of individuals to create a new tool, a new mental model, or a new form of behavior that allows them to circumvent the social and the environmental pressure and walk through this window of opportunity and not just survive in the face of social and environmental pressure, but thrive, right? And when these members of the tribe have circumvented this pressure, the other members of the tribe say, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
Right? And so there is a communication that takes place, right? The idea, the mental model, or the tool and how to make it, or the new form of behavior, whatever, this is relayed conceptually, right? And it changes the dialogue in the tribe, right? Changes their thought patterns. It changes their words that they use. In some cases, they even invent new words based on this new tool or new mental model, you see? So we're evolving in our ability to intellectually grasp the world, right? And so all evolutionary steps have taken place in this similar way. So it first takes place with the evolution of an individual and then the evolution of the group, right? Okay. So currently, we are dealing with tremendous amounts of social and environmental pressure, right? And that social and environmental pressure has created a window of opportunity for us in space and time. And we currently have now, because of all this social and environmental pressure, we now have the apocalyptic vision necessary to see how corrupt everything actually is, right? And how distorted the lens of like the media or social media actually is. So there you have a new mental model. And with that new mental model comes this idea of the suppression of technology that could free us. You see? Because the government corruption, all of that stuff, it all ties in. This is part of the apocalypse or the lifting of the veil. So now we have these new tools, zero-point energy engine, Tesla towers that were discovered over 100 years ago, Dr. Reif's machine, the frequency healing machine, or even things like the zero-point energy engine, the room temperature superconductor, and the anti-gravity TR3B, inertia propulsion craft. These things are the new tools. Now, Nikola Tesla once said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. In order to understand how these technologies work, you have to understand energy, frequency, and vibration. So when these things make their way into the market and people start to understand how they work, then the secrets of the universe unfold before us, you see? And now that goes into the mental model element.
Right.
See, so we have an understanding of the corruption of government and the system and how distorted everything is and the lie. We see the lie. Now we also see the truth. And we get in geometric congruence with that by using these tools. And the new form of behavior is nonviolent non-cooperation. It's voting with our time, our energy, and our money, our attention, right? That is a new form of behavior. So what we do is we create a new system that circumvents the old system because this new system is better. So we're circumventing the social and environmental pressure. We're also spiritually evolving because we understand the secrets of the universe regarding energy, frequency, and vibration. And because we're spiritually evolving, we're able to use the large amounts of energy that come with these tools without destroying ourselves.
Yeah.
And then nonviolence is the new form of behavior. So if you can understand everything that I just said, and you start talking about Tesla Tower technology or Dr. Rife's machine, that's RIFE, Royal Raymond Rife, look into him. Or you start talking about Salvador Payas's patents, the Pius patents, the 0-point energy engine, the room temperature superconductor, and the TR3B, or the gravitational wave generator. When you start talking about those things, you ensure the future that we talked about earlier, where humanity is symbiotic with the environment and we're space exploring. You ensure that future comes into being. So that is what I am leaving you and your audience with, is the power to make humanity a spacefaring species, to help us to technologically and, more importantly, spiritually ascend, and so that we'll be free for generations to come.
It's a big opportunity. That's what I'm hearing you say right now here.
And coming into the age of Aquarius, it's like the universe is rolling out the red carpet.
Yes,
Truly.
Yes, truly. Your
Making it easy for us.
Your time, your attention, your
currency.
focus, they are your currency. And that's really important to think about, truly, in every
Time
way.
and attention are the currency of the universe. You can spend them, you can invest them, you can waste them. But one way or another, you got the time. What are you doing with it?
Right. Yes. What a major permission slip that you just gave all of us to step into. Yep. Exactly. On that note.
That's so good. Such a beautiful time. Thank you so much for your time, your attention, and your precious currency being here to share your work, your mission, and your journey and story.
The honor is mine.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you all.
All right, you rise.
All right, beautiful souls. Well, thank you so much for listening in. We are going to be processing this one. We are so grateful for you listening too. Thank you for taking your time here with us. You know where to find us. If this resonated with you, please share with a friend, subscribe, follow along. Email us too at spiritualgirlpod@gmail.com.
So much gratitude here. And to all of you, until next time.
Stay tuned.